This is the Gaming Buzz Podcast, where ranting about video games somehow equals content.
Hello and welcome to another Gaming Buzz discussion. I'm Jacob, he's Jason, and we're with Darian today instead of Christian.
Hello, again. I've
Again.
been here consecutively.
Yep, third time in a row.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's okay.
I like it.
The last two episodes we did, they were actually a little while ago. We had a couple breaks due to scheduling issues and whatnot. That's okay. But we left off without talking about a major part of video game distribution, and that is
digital.
We did not talk about digital downloads in either of our videos beforehand. They were great, really great discussions. Check them out if you haven't seen them yet. One was on very retro-styled physical mediums,
Going back to
floppy
back.
disks and NES cartridges. The other one was more modern stuff, Blu-rays, Switch cartridges. This time we're talking about the non-physical mediums.
Well, technically, it's not physical the way it gets there, but it is. But
It's on a hard drive, but
it is physical once it's on your hard drive.
I guess so.
But
But you're downloading it.
what's the storage capacity
What's the storage capacity of
for digital distribution?
the internet?
No, the storage capacity is your hard drive.
No, it's the entire internet. What if you have more than one hard drive?
It's your hard drive. It's whatever space is on your hard drive. This capacity.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, so I guess we should start, and this really will not have nothing to do with our conversation today, but I wanted to ask, can either one of you remember your first time ever downloading a video game?
Yeah, it was an online game called Roblox. It was the first game I downloaded.
Roblox. Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know if you want to consider that even.
Sure.
because,
No,
you
that's
know,
fine.
it's a game. You download
When was
it.
that?
That was back in 2008. I remember my parents
That
went
was
to
really late.
my parents went to it's because I couldn't download anything, and I decided to sneak on my the computer when my parents were gone. It was my first time being home alone, and I was like, "Hey, I think this game would be cool." I did it.
Jason?
I'm trying to think because way back in the day when I started on DOS, there really wasn't anything.
No. I mean, you had bulletin boards, but not everyone used them.
Right.
Or even could use them.
They were difficult to use.
There wasn't much that I did with Windows 95 for that. The first digital thing I probably downloaded was, I think, World of Warcraft.
Hmm.
Yeah.
In the OG days?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, it was probably around 2002, 2003, downloading Game Boy Advance ROMs from really, really shady websites. Does that count?
I guess.
That kind of can. I mean, it's not very legal, but
No.
you were a child and you just wanted something to do.
Yeah. I was a bored and poor child, so...
I didn't really get internet until 2007, 8, that time period. So,
Can you
I'm
imagine not having internet now?
I mean, it's always in my pocket.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's talk about digital downloads, because technically they were a thing in the 90s, right?
Incredibly.
There were services for the Genesis that let you download games, right?
Right.
I think the Commodore 64 had services that allowed you to download games way back in the 80s.
Technically, the downloadable game services were all the way back in the 70s because there was, I forget which console it was, but you hook up to a phone line and you would have been able to download, but it wasn't downloaded, it was just to RAM.
So when would you guys say downloads really became a thing that was easy enough for a normal consumer to do?
2008.
That's when Darian did it, so that's what
Yeah.
he says.
That's I've noticed a trend though, because I'm saying this because
I guess we should split that in two, though. For PCs, it was a lot earlier than it was for consoles.
right. I'm just saying as an overall thing though, because broadband was not really that huge of a thing until about 2006 or 7, because a lot of people still had the dial-up, and broadband became much more widespread in 2008.
Well, when did Steam come around?
It technically came out in 2004, but it really didn't start really going on till like 2007.
Okay, so
And that's probably when I'd say.
That's when I would give it.
Steam was the thing that really started the digital downloads. Sure, like we said, they existed literally for decades before, but Steam made it so much easier than it was.
Yeah, they revolutionized how it's done.
I mean, I started downloading games legally through Steam in 2008-ish, 2009 maybe. I remember downloading Portal on Steam after paying money for it and feeling like a wizard.
See, that touches on like the whole thing that I was saying, because the whole digital age and of video games started when like the Xbox 360 and PS3 came out, but there wasn't really a downloadable storefront that was really relevant until 2007 or 8 on those consoles, because 2006 internet still kind of was poopy.
I'd argue it was even later, really, for consoles.
I'd say 2010 was probably
I would
better.
probably put it right around there too, because yes, you had Xbox Live and you had the PlayStation Store, but they very much were not for full games. It was for either small, little, tiny indie games that didn't take up much space and were easy to download.
The Wii Shop channel.
That's another one. More retro titles. Or very small DLC packs.
Yeah.
Though I'm going to say 2008, I may be wrong in this. We started to get larger DLC packs, things like full expansions for GTA 4.
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of clicked, where we finally had the infrastructure for full downloads, and developers started essentially training consumers that, oh, hey, you can buy full games. It wasn't until, I want to say 2010-ish, where people really said, hey, I could go to the store and buy this, or I could buy this same $60 game online.
For the age of the patch. That's kind of where we started seeing full video games too become like available all the time, because I remember when the 3DS first came out, you couldn't get any major releases digitally until about 2013.
13.
It was 2013 when you started seeing almost every game being released digitally. So I'd even argue it would even stretch out further for consoles too, because on like PS3, I'm looking at titles that came out in 2011, 2012. They're only physical. So
I'd say 2010 was the real true birthplace of console downloading.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Jason?
I would go back to whenever the 360 and the PS3 came out, because with like Madden's the prominent thing for that, because the Ultimate Teams.
Right.
That's kind of what has jacked up EA's profit. Like right now, I think the last thing I saw a couple years ago, even now, EA's profits are 52% or higher digital, largely due to Madden.
And now the FIFA too.
Yep.
With and FIFA's got tons of microtransactions now,
Right.
which admittedly is not a bad thing. They handle it well in that case. Okay.
And
so,
then Battlefield too, because
Yeah.
they have their premium edition and stuff.
and
that
crates.
I actually care about that stuff.
Yeah.
Really.
So it was right around the transition to the new decade, the 2010s, that downloading of major titles really became a thing.
Can we just sit back and think 2010 was 7 years ago?
That was 7
Can
years
we
ago.
can we think it's almost
Thanks for
been a
aging
decade?
this video, or dating this video.
Yeah, and dating me even
As of
further.
talking, like 2010 feels like it was yesterday for me. I don't know about you guys, but like it's been years.
I remember 2010, and the first console I was able to download things on was Wii. And I remember I got my very first Wii Shop points card. You remember, because back then it was points.
I never bought one of those ever in my life.
I never got to use a credit card, because my parents didn't trust this fancy, newfangled thing.
Like,
And I
no.
remember I got one of those cards, and the first games I ever went onto an online shop and bought, I bought My Pokemon Ranch, which was a terrible idea. And I bought Mega Man 9, which was even worse of an idea.
Good job, Jacob.
And here's the thing. My parents had pretty decent internet at the time, and they still took forever.
Oh, those
to download.
servers were super slow. They
Look
kept-
how far we've come, though, since then. Um, so how did this monumental change the fact that you don't have to go to the store anymore to buy your full releases?
You had to wait just as long if you're gonna like take a car ride to and from the store. You might as well just go.
Sometimes,
But you don't have to
But
get
you
off
can-
your chair.
but now you can actually pre-download things,
Yeah, that's
which
nice.
is cool. But so now, how has that changed the industry? How is the digital revolution? Because the digital revolution came to everything. The music industry arguably has been destroyed by digital downloads.
Right.
They basically pioneered it and they fell apart by it.
Whereas movies were impacted by digital downloads. It took a lot longer than it did with music. I mean, music downloads were a thing in 99, 2000, whereas for movies, streaming and whatnot didn't really take over till right around when it took over for video games.
I'd say the streaming for video was probably more of a 2014, 15 time period.
Nah, I think it was a bit earlier than that, I'd argue. Because it wasn't just Netflix. There were other services.
But I don't care about movies, so we're not talking about that.
Yeah, this isn't movie buzz. So
You can't discredit us. I can't even talk. Discredit us on the topic that's not even at hand.
okay, so how? Because those industries were drastically changed. For music, it destroyed the music industry for the most part, and it made it much harder to earn revenue through music, right?
Yep.
For movies, it actually was arguably a really positive effect because it meant a lot more benefit to smaller studios, and it also made it so older content was much more easily accessible.
And that, you don't have this lost stuff all the time.
But what about video games? Jason?
So with video games, it's not so much destroying the medium as a whole as it is slowing down the physical market, which means you'll see less and less in stores. And if something goes all digital, basically the only places that are going to be able to sell games are going to be places like GameStop that can integrate systems that can just print codes.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like one of the things that digital is doing to physical or just to the whole thing is if a game is released only digitally or it was very limited physically, then you have the case where some games have licenses, like it happened to Spider-Man games that I remember. Like
Or,
they were
some of the platinum games like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one.
Yeah, they get released digitally and they're really hard to get physically, or they're not even physical games. And somebody might want to play that, but they can't download it anymore.
Or there was Alan Wake that happened to recently, if you remember that. Yeah, so that is a worry. The first thing that came to my mind when I asked that question was the fact that there would not have been an indie game boom if it weren't for digital downloads. Hands down, it would not have happened.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And I don't discount the things with digital, but working in the industry for 11, 12 years now, like when 25% of your player base does not have internet, digital is just not going to go the way you want it to.
And the thing is another question we had to think about is, do we own our digital goods, or is it just a license that they give to us and they can revoke at any time?
And some of those questions have been answered. Some of them are still gray areas. We don't know.
Like, I can say that I have copies of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas for PS2. I have PS3. Then there's the re-releases, and then there's the PC version, which, without notice, they removed a lot of music because of licensing issues. Which I like the music that they removed, but it's like you're taking something that I bought. Like, I bought the game, and I could argue that I want that content, but they took it away because, their licenses and keeping it up to date.
And that's not even the scariest part. What happens if a online download service completely fails and goes out of business? What happens then? I know Steam has a clause saying that if Steam ever goes out of business, if Valve ever goes out of business, you get to download all of your games onto a hard drive.
Yeah.
And get them without their DRM. A lot of services don't have that, though.
Right. Like, what if Origin goes out? Because, Origin. EA took most of their current, like, Battlefields off of Steam, and they don't even touch Steam anymore. Like, what if you bought your EA game and you can't play it because Origin goes out?
Well, that leads into, okay, so with the world of all the DDoS attacks that have been happening continuously every day, what happens when the internet goes dark? You can't play any of these digital games.
Right.
There's a handful that you can without internet, but not many.
Right.
And
if it's not already downloaded, you can't download it.
And that's not just for downloadable titles as well. You have that with physical games. If PlayStation Network is taken down, you're not going to be playing Destiny 2 on your PS4.
Right. All online games are rough like that. But again, that leads into it's a 50-50 thing. Like, people will bring me up Destiny or Star Wars Battlefront, something like that. And be like, this game requires internet. And they're like, okay, and we can't buy that then.
That brings up, I know for a fact, the thing you most want to talk about. Are digital goods, digital games, taking over or have taken over for physical? And is physical going to die 100%?
It's not going to die 100%.
Well,
but the problem that we have here is that a lot of people consider like DLC and things like that part of the digital goods. Eliminating that, there are a lot of people who prefer to download their full game because they don't have to leave the house.
Or get off the couch and change a disc.
That affects all the rest of the markets.
Yes.
That when you slow down profits at places like GameStop, mom and pop stores, things like that, because you download it digitally, that's how places go out of business.
It's interesting to me because the thing that endangered the record industry so much was piracy through digital download. And sure, that exists with the video games, but it's not that major of a thing. What is a major thing is just people not going and buying things physically anymore.
The other thing there is a lot of cases, if you pay attention to GameStop's website, I use them as an example because they're the easiest. You'll be able to find a physical copy for $40, but the digital is still $60.
That's one of the big things I wanted to talk about.
Like,
one of the weaknesses to digital.
It needs to be a lower cost because you don't have a physical thing with it.
Well, part of the problem actually is price fixing. So a lot of retailers will have contracts that game publishers need to sign in order to have their games physically appear on those retailers' shelves that say, this game cannot be cheaper downloadable than it is physically.
Right.
And that's one of the things that's holding back digital games from being cheaper. That's one of the reasons why, you can still find games from 2014 on PSN that are full price.
Right.
Right. So this is one of the things that I could see to fix that issue is the store can either sell a physical copy that's more expensive, and then they can either, like, on their website, because, you have the internet and you need the internet to download, so you can download voucher or buy vouchers or something. Like, you can go to the store and get a reduced voucher for a digital game at, say, a physical store, even though it's kind of like it's kind
That's
of
just adding more steps.
But you could go to, like, say a Walmart or a Target, pick out this little card and then use it. So when the game gets reduced in price physically, the digital price can go down too, because, the vouchers go down in price too.
I don't think that will ever succeed.
It wouldn't, but I could see it as a loophole.
Let's kind of go back to the start of Xbox One when they first announced it at E3, because that's a huge thing that kind of proves the point of digital for me. You would have had to check in every 24 hours. You would have had always been online. And then every game would have installed to your hard drive and you wouldn't have needed the disc. Basically, putting in the disc gives you the digital version of it. The biggest thing there is that you were able to trade them in, but the only place you would have been able to trade them into is some place like GameStop or maybe Best Buy if they were able to integrate. they cloud-based Azure. And they took so much flack for it that if they would have released the system with what they wanted to do, their system would not have sold even remotely as well as it actually did.
Which, honestly, was not great.
But that's still, it would have sold even less because Sony would have just drove the market there, and they would have capitalized on that.
I don't think we're ready for a fully digital ecosystem.
Oh, no.
But this is something you and I have talked about a lot. You've got a vested interest in this because of your occupation.
Right.
And you and I have thrown around numbers before. I've asked you, what year do you think it'll be that a console will come out that's actually successful, that is digital only? What do you think?
Probably 2025 at this point, because a lot of people who want to have like a Steam-based operating system are just going to plug their PC into their TV.
Yeah,
Right.
Steam is not the future of consoles.
Right, but
It's been proven.
But that's ideally what Xbox was trying to do, and they proved that it's just not there. There's like 100-something different Steam machines out there that you can buy.
Yeah, and that's another mistake. But
It's again, why are we focusing on a Steam-based operating system when we should be focusing on a digital sale that will allow you to play games offline after you download it?
So, something I've thought about with this. What if, theoretically, one of the major console manufacturers released a secondary version of one of their systems that just didn't have a disk drive, that was cheaper? Do you think there'd be a market for that?
Yes. I'm just going to say yes.
Jason?
I think there would be, but I don't think it's as strong as a market as what people would think it would be.
I agree. It'd be more niche, for sure.
Right.
An example of that has happened once before, the PSP Go, if you remember that.
Yeah, that
was
failed
released
after
during
about
the
6
wrong
months.
time.
That was way too early for a digital download only system, right?
Right.
And not on the greatest system for it.
Right.
That being said, I personally like the PSP Go, but that's a discussion for another time.
Here's one thing that I could say that could wane this thing to be more of a good choice is if you sold it in communities. So if they did some research, they'd only sell it in communities that have strong enough internet, so you wouldn't sell it near rural areas.
And
market it towards the city people and not the people who have dial-up in their forest living abode.
Here's an example for you, though. This is once again going to not video games, because there are a lot of illusions that can show us how video games will go. Because typically, video games are not first for new ideas or technologies.
Right.
Movies. 4K Blu-ray is a thing. And when 4K Blu-ray was announced just a couple of years ago, a lot of reviewers and tech people said, why? Why would I buy that? I'm just going to stream my 4K content from Netflix, right? It makes no sense to me. But there's a huge market for it in a lot of other countries. For instance, 4K Blu-ray sells very, very well in the Middle East, where internet connections are not great, but there are people who can afford it. So they sell well to those markets that need physical mediums.
Right.
For everyone else, we got downloads.
Right. So, for example, I'm just going to say, like, when it was the 4th of July weekend, I went up to an area where the internet was extremely spotty. And, there's a lot of talk of people having to go far distances to get physical media, but the people have to go out of their way to go and get it. But it's a very needed thing if people want to enjoy themselves. So, UPS, FedEx, they're quite prominent up there too.
Yeah, and overall, the biggest driving factors for me, the fact that I don't think physical is going to die anytime soon, is, which we've already touched on most of it, the fact that if internet ever goes dark, you can't play those games. The fact that the cost of digital tends to stay higher than physical. And, at least 20-25% of the player base doesn't have internet. those are three of the major factors that just kill the idea that you're going to have an all-digital console. Unless, like, the internet companies get off their ass and make it easier and more reasonably priced to get internet, you're going to keep
Which
having...
won't happen.
Right. You're going to keep having those problems. Or if, like...
Your episode on net neutrality.
Or what is it? Was it China or Korea? One of them's government-controlled internet for basically everybody. Yeah.
Here's what I think about this. I think the success of digital-only platforms, or the eventual obsolescence of physical media, relies on a different revolution in gaming, and that's cloud gaming. I think because both Microsoft and Sony are heavily investing in cloud gaming right now. You've got PlayStation Now, right? That's what it's called.
Yep.
You've got that new Xbox service. We did an episode on the Turbo Bun show on it. I forget what it's called. Game Live, maybe?
I forget.
I apologize.
They
I
haven't
don't
marketed
remember
it very well.
And then you've got companies like NVIDIA who have their own services.
GeForce Now,
which is probably the most effective of them right now.
Yep.
And as long as you have a really good internet connection, they work.
I mean, like, you have some games, it's game to game.
You're not going to want to play Street Fighter V on it right now.
Right.
But most games, they work just fine. Now, here's the thing with that. We are in the dark ages when it comes to cloud gaming. That's going to change. And as cloud gaming becomes more and more usable over the next 5-10 years, physical media is not going to matter anymore. I think if 10 years down the road, I think we're not going to be quite at the point where cloud gaming is every game.
I would hate it.
But there will certainly, cloud gaming will be at the point where digital downloads are right now, I think. Or at least close. And by that point, you have cloud gaming plus digital downloads. You're not going to need physical medium anymore.
Right. But what I foresee happening when we get to that point is the companies release systems that are all digital, all cloud-based.
Absolutely.
But they see their sales drop of their systems, and then they wonder why it dropped.
I think they'll know why.
Right. But I think when that happens, they'll figure it out. But I don't doubt that they're going to try within the next 10 or so years.
There was a article a couple months ago, or an interview with Phil Spencer from Microsoft, and he said that one of the products they had been experimenting with was an Xbox streaming stick. It was just a stick you'd plug into your TV that did nothing but download small indie titles and do cloud gaming. And they said that the product worked fine. They just didn't feel the market was ready for it.
Right.
The technology is there, but we as consumers and we as internet users aren't ready yet.
No.
But that's going to change eventually. When we can make our guesses, and some of them will be close, but we're not sure yet.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe it'll swing back to being more physical based than digital. Who knows?
Maybe we'll have like what's going on with music right now with the vinyl resurgence.
We're going to be buying our games and they're going to come on cassette tapes and then we're going to put them into
No, that's too far. That's too far. We got to get flash cartridges again.
Oh, you mean the Nintendo Switch?
Yeah, but like full big cartridges
Gigantic,
with
clunky
full
ones?
circuit boards in them.
And they're like they're each
Yes.
like 1 terabyte hard drives that you just plugged in. that would be awesome. That would really be awesome.
It's interesting because I think the Switch will be really interesting to see once we get some real data on it, just how many full release Switch games are being downloaded versus bought in stores.
Right.
Because honestly, the physical version, you're not getting much. They pretty much don't come with manuals anymore.
Well, some
With
games come
rare
with manuals
exception.
and stickers. I'm looking at the Binding of Isaac Plus.
But the majority of them don't even have manuals. You get a piece of paper, a cheap plastic case, and a tiny cartridge, right?
Right.
There are a lot of people, so one in this room who happens to be doing production right now, who I've heard saying, I could go to the store and buy this, but whatever, I'm just going to download it on the eShop. The convenience is there, right?
Right.
Yeah, the games are very like compressed on the system. Like I like they have some like wizardry going on because these games are way too small compared to like their sizes elsewhere.
So we'll have to see. Is the Switch that true turning point? Because I mean, we hear numbers that digital downloads have taken over physical. We've heard it several times, right?
Right.
But that's always including mobile.
Right. Well, and that's also including all the DLCs, not actual just physical.
I want to
full
see
games.
the hard numbers of AAA game. How many people bought AAA game physically versus digitally?
Right.
And I think it's probably about 2/3 physical right now.
Right.
I have one thing to say. When we can start playing Battlefield on our phones, I don't see us like going into a full digital market, to be honest, because
We're getting closer.
yeah, we're getting there, but
I mean, you can play Rise of the Tomb Raider on, a NVIDIA Shield.
no,
via-
that's not Rise. That's the 2013 one.
Whatever. You can play some pretty demanding game. You can play Witcher 3. There. Demanding game. You can play Witcher 3 on a little tiny handheld due to cloud gaming. So technically, that would be possible.
I wouldn't want to do that.
I think we've ranted long enough. Do you guys have final thoughts?
Yep. So, long story short, part of this came because Jacob's dad, who is the fine owner of this establishment, believes that physical media is dead. He thinks that digital is the way to go. And I keep telling him, no, it is not.
I'll give him a concession. He's right if you're counting only PC gaming.
Right.
Yep.
But that's about it.
No one buys physical PC games anymore.
I will buy certain PC games still physical, but not many of them.
I like physical because I like getting up off the couch and looking at the world.
The only modern game I have physically on PC is GTA 5, and that's because I literally found that at a thrift store. Like 2 days after the PC version came out. It didn't have its download key, but I just bought it because it was a cool box.
You can still you could have still used the discs to install and then buy one off the website.
Yeah. But I don't have a disk drive on my modern PC.
Oh wait, I did.
That is how little it matters to me. My expensive gaming PC doesn't have any way besides USB to read physical media.
Right.
That's really saying something. That's my final thought. And you know what? Just going home and saying, man, I want a new game, clicking a few buttons on Steam and downloading one is so convenient for me. But I don't really do that with consoles because I like the physical media. But for PC, I'm trained. Darian, your final thoughts?
Physical's nice. I like digital for PC because you don't have to worry about managing discs for that. But I don't want to see physical ever go because I like to have boxes on shelves.
Do you think it will come to a point? My last question here. Do you think it will come to a point where you can only get physical media in special editions?
That'd be kind of interesting, to be honest. 'cause-
Jason?
So I would like something like that to be possible, but with the fact that some special editions you can still only download right now,
Which is pretty crappy.
there's going to be there's problems with that. But
All right, well, that's everything, right?
right.
We've wasted too much time. You guys need to let us know what you think about this. Do you think, a couple years from now, we're going to be a digital-only gaming
Is physical dead?
circle? Is physical gaming dead? Is it on its way out? Or does it just need to be repurposed to something like vinyl is? Let us know all of this stuff. Like this video, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss our next episode, whatever it may be. We haven't decided yet. And then check out our shop, www.gamingbuzz.com/shop, so you can buy some cool merchandise so you can support us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did I hit everything?
Also, the clothing is nice, so you're not naked.
Okay, thank you.
I haven't said that for a while.
And you can find us on Facebook at I don't know the website, actually. I lied. You can find us in the Gaming Buzz community on Facebook, and you can talk directly with all three of us here and Christian and ask us anything.
Christian's shy, though.
Christian is pretty shy.
Yeah, I've been trying to troll more, but I've been super busy, so I promise I'll go back to trolling a little bit.
And that's everything. So we will see you guys next time. Bye.
All right.
Thanks for watching.
Did you like that? Of course you did. You can get more at gamingbuzz.com. Let us know what else you want by connecting with us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube.